Welcome to the third video of Chapter 1. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about trade-offs, consumer rights, consumer responsibilities, economic growth, productivity, human capital, specialization, division of labor, the circular flow model, and the markets. So why don't we begin with trade-offs? Trade-offs are all of the alternative choices when making economic decisions. Again, key word. All the alternative choices when making a decision. So let's look at the example on the screen. You have $60 that you've been given, and you need to decide what to do with it. Do you save it? You can go spend it. If you want to go spend it, where are you going to go spend it? What are you going to go spend it on? You could buy an expensive $60 pair of jeans. You could buy $35 pair of jeans and a $25 shirt. So now you have a combination. Or you could say, you know what, I've got enough clothes, or somebody else will give me clothes, so let's go to the movies. So you can spend $20 at the movies, popcorn and soda, and you can say, well, I need to get something else to eat, so I'm going to get $15 for lunch and then buy a DVD for $25. Or new music has come out and you still like those CDs. So you go out and buy four $15 CDs. Or you decide, you know what, I want to buy my significant other something. So you go out and you spend all $60 on candies and a bouquet because you really love them. That is a trade-off. You have multiple options, and within those options, you decide, with all the choices available, you decide what you want to do with your money. Now let's talk about consumer rights. In a world of giant corporations, it may seem as if the individual consumer is the little guy who often gets overlooked. But you and I know that we as consumers, when we group together, we help decide the what question of producers, and that in the previous videos, 3 questions that societies face, and therefore where a country will be on its production possibilities frontier. In 1962, President Kennedy asked Congress to come up with consumer rights. They came up with the first 4 that you see on the screen, and the 5th one was added by President Nixon. So the first one to come up was the right to safety. That protects against goods that are dangerous to life and health. You and I have a right to go out and buy a product and not worry about whether it's going to be safe for consumption, whether it's going to be safe for use, it's going to be whether we're going to live and die when we use it. So the first one is the right to safety. The second one is the right to information. You have the right to receive information that can be used for reasoned choices and protection against fraud. So with the information that was given, we can make decisions. And you have that little fine print, that's still information. So it's especially important to read the fine print. But we have the right to information to protect us against those sorts of things. The third one is the right to choice. And the right to choice is the right to be protected in markets where competition may not always exist. This is that monopoly area. You have a right to choice. That's where the government steps in and says, look, this isn't fair. There isn't enough companies competing for your business, so we're going to regulate. This is where you can have some price controls that happen so that you and I as a consumer don't get hurt. The next 2 on the list are actually flipped in order. So the right to a voice, or the right to be heard, is the 4th one that was brought about in the 1962 version that President Kennedy asked Congress for, and that is the right and the guarantee that consumer interests will be considered when laws are being written. The last one to be added was President Nixon's, the right to redress, which basically means the ability of consumers to receive adequate payment from producers if they are harmed by their products. So that means that if something happens, you have a right to be compensated back for whatever injury or whatever harm that was done to you. Now, with rights become responsibilities. So if a product is faulty, the consumer, or you and I, are responsible for starting up the problem-solving process. If something goes wrong with the product, you need to contact the person or the company that you bought the product from so that you can start that redress process. You need to state the problem and suggest a fair solution, not a solution that is only beneficial to you, but what you think is a fair solution. Sometimes mistakes happen, sometimes things happen. Obviously if it's very serious, obviously you should get more of the benefit of the doubt. But a lot of times it could be something somewhat minor that happens with the product, so it should be a fair solution. And then you need to keep an accurate record of your efforts to solve the problem. If necessary, contact the manufacturer in writing and keep a copy. So now that could be an email, or that could be, obviously, if you want to write a letter, but in today's world, who writes a letter anymore? So keeping a copy of that email on file helps. Now let's talk about economic growth, productivity, and human capital. Economic growth occurs when a nation's total output of goods and services increases over time. As you can see on the screen, I have put the 2 reasons that economic growth is important. 1, because of scarcity. Everybody wants more goods and services than they now have. And 2, if the population is growing, there will be even more people wanting goods and services to satisfy their wants and needs in the future. Now, investing in new physical or human resources can increase future productivity and consumption. That is for sure. But investments may require us to limit our current consumption to satisfy needs and wants down the road. We might need to give up some things in the present. That's the dilemma of opportunity cost that everyone faces. Not consuming today in order to have the ability to consume tomorrow is not without risk. So here's an example. Businesses are making the right investment decisions today to meet consumer needs and demands in the future. Yes or no? Or have you picked the right major in college? Or will the field of study you are studying no longer be necessary by the time you graduate? Economists have a number of ways to describe economic growth, but the easiest way to explain it is with those production possibility frontiers. Productivity is the measure of the amount of output produced by a given amount of input within a certain time. Productivity increases with the efficient use of scarce resources. Efficient, little to no waste. Everything runs really well. You can do more with less. That's what efficient is. So to be productive, it's the measure, the amount of output produced by a given amount of input within a certain time. And then there's human capital. That's the sum of people's skills, abilities, health, knowledge, and motivation. Individuals can invest in their own education by completing high school, going to technical school, or attending college. We know that the higher the education, the more likely it is to earn more money. Businesses can invest in training and other programs that improve the skill of their workers. Government can invest in human capital by providing financial aid for education and health care costs. So there are many ways to invest in human capital, and it doesn't just happen to be from the individual. Specialization and division of labor. Division of labor is a way of organizing work so that each worker or group completes a separate part of overall tasks. Division of labor goes with that old adage that repetition is the mother of all learning. The more you do something, the better you learn it. And with repetition comes specialization. Specialization takes place when factors of production perform only tasks they can do better or more efficiently than others. An example of specialization is the assembly of a product may be broken down into a number of separate tasks to be performed by different workers. When each worker is assigned to perform the specific task he or she does best, division of labor becomes specialization. In the U.S., increases in productivity due to the division of labor and specialization have yet another consequence. It is what we're going to call economic interdependence. Now we're going to move to the circular flow model. So we have two markets. We have a factor market and a product market. In the factor market, as you can see here, the households are going to sell. So that's you and I, that's a consumer. We're going to sell things, and the firm is going to buy. The things that we can sell are the factors of production, the labor, land, capital, and entrepreneurship. The factors of production go into the businesses who buy factors of production and sell products. So they're going to make things for us to sell. In the product market, this is where firms sell and households buy. Businesses take it to market. Goods and services are sold to the households. The money that we get is from the household factor market, and we spend it and give it back to the businesses in the product market. So it's one big circle. Again, the best way to understand and remember is putting it in your shoes. You go and you sell your land, you sell your labor, which means you're going to get paid for that labor in the factor market. The business who paid you your wages turns and makes things. They turn around and sell them, whether it's the mall or wherever it is that you go buy stuff, the grocery store, anywhere where you can buy and sell something. Even movies are product market. You turn around and you spend the wages that you got in the factor market, and that money goes back to those businesses. So this circular flow model, everything comes around. Just to recap the factor market, individuals earn income and focus on the four factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. That's what factors in the factor market. You're going to earn income, and the four factors of production are what is being sold: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. In the product market, this is where you and I go to spend money, and the focus is on the goods and services. That's what's being bought and sold. That concludes the information for this video, in which we cover trade-offs, consumer rights, consumer responsibilities, economic growth, productivity, human capital, division of labor, specialization, the circular flow, and markets. This also is the end of Chapter 1. What is economics? Stay tuned for more videos as we cover throughout the semester economics in the classroom.